Recording in progress.
Madam Secretary, will you call the roll, please?
Well, give me 10 seconds.
Yeah, really. Calm down, calm down.
Well, there are only five of us.
Yeah, I know, but I need to have all my accoutrements together. Ah. Okay, Paul Garza,
Present.
Paul Katzif, absent. Jan McGordy,
Present.
and Susan Savage, present. Sarah Spring, absent.
Okay, so we have quorum?
Well, we have 3 out of 5, that's quorum.
I'll figure it out.
Okay, before beginning, I just want to note that something I'm sure all of you are aware of is that we have a very dangerous fire in the Anderson Valley right now, and a number of people out there being evacuated, and then we've got a number of our citizens out also trying to fight their fire out. So I just do want to extend my well wishes and ask all of you to send positive thoughts and prayers and whatever to all those folks who are being affected by it. It's a tough environment we live in here. So at this point, let me call for public comments on items not on the agenda. Do you have any public comments?
There's a hand up.
That may be me.
No, that's
messing
the
around.
cursor.
Oh, it's the cursor.
Okay.
No,
Mr.
just raise your
McDonald?
hand.
Mr. McDonald?
Thank you. Board members, whether elected or appointed, are not inherently entitled to respect from the public. Board members must earn every bit of respect granted to them through their actions and words. Members of the public do not owe anything to board members. Board members are public servants. They serve the public. Any board member who isn't prepared for critical commentary or any other sort of criticism from their fellow board members or individual members of the public should probably exit so that they don't get their sensitive feelings hurt. Also, why does the chair insist on discussing financial matters in his monthly reports when those matters are the purview of the CFO or treasurer? In his June report, the chair stated, quote, "The district will accrue over $41 million by 2030, end quote. The $41 million figure is misleading. $10 to $11 million of that will be under the control of Adventist Health, not the healthcare district. Where are the specific financial documents that Treasurer Spring asked for at the last meeting? Just one example is the mention of the return of the IGT dollars, over $1 million. Yet no copy of the specific deposit has been presented to the full board or the public. The chair's advisory group includes the 5th District Supervisor, but there's no representation from either the current or soon-to-be 4th District Supervisors, nor any representation from the city of Fort Bragg. Has the chair consulted with the real property negotiator ad hoc committee members? As referenced in June, has any progress been made in scheduling a special meeting to discuss the community meetings held earlier this year? Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments from the public at this point? Okay, with that, let's move on. Mr. Director Katzif.
Hi. Paul, you're over there today.
Is the door locked?
Okay.
I guess it was.
Okay, so let me go over a few things with you for my report. First of all, I want you to know that we are working on a draft to respond to the grand jury report. I believe we have until, is it early October or late September?
September 12th.
September 12th, okay.
Was the day?
I know that Kathy Wiley has drafted some parts. I've taken a lot of notes. Susan, Director Savage, and I are responsible for preparing that for the board. We hope to have that by the next board meeting so the board can discuss it, hopefully come to agreement and consensus. While we are working on that, at the same time, We intend to take all of those elements that the grand jury has indicated, and they actually brought it to us in a chart as part of their report, and post that on our website so the public can track those portions of those recommendations that we have implemented, those that we're working on, and those that we're yet to accomplish. We hope to be as transparent in this process as possible. Now, with respect to our financial status, last year the district paid almost $21,000 in banking fees. This year, we anticipate we will pay no banking fees. That's a result of the movement that we've placed in terms of clearing out accounts, and that should all be able to help. Additionally, because of the investments that we've undertaken following the investment policy that was adopted by the board and now being implemented by our CFO, Wayne Allen, we are generating about a little over $2,000 a day in interest payments. Now that will vary. We expect that could be as much as $750,000 a year. That will vary because as we pay out on for maintenance and other kinds of items, the amount in our accounts will go down, and so therefore their interest will. But in any case, the point is we're doing really well there. With respect to the Senate Bill 1432, which I've talked to you about before, and again, this is the bill that's proposed that would extend the date of seismic compliance for California hospitals to January 1st, 2033, giving us 3 additional years, and also would provide other considerations, including some potential funding and perhaps even a longer period of time for rural hospitals that are financially distressed. Passed out of the Assembly Health Committee on a 14-0 vote and has now gone to the floor. The California legislature is now in recess, and we'll be back reconvene in September, and we may see some action on that bill to my surprise, but it would be great this current year. The other interesting development, and I failed to put this into my written report, so I apologize for that, but I think it's an important one. The Board of Supervisors is now researching the creation of a business improvement district that would encompass all of the county, and it would specifically target Medi-Cal and Medicare reimbursement. There's been some concern that this, and it would propose what I believe it's a 6%, am I correct? 6% surcharge on all Medi-Cal Medicare reimbursement. Now, there's been some concern, number one, that this would increase the cost of providing services to individuals. And the county's intent is to structure this in a way that it will not affect any individual's payments. The second concern is that has been expressed is that this is an attempt for Adventist Health to make more money. I think this misses the point. One of the big problems we face in the financial stability and potential profitability of our hospital is that rural hospitals receive lower rates of reimbursement than urban hospitals in California. And the Medicare rate that we get paid is based upon the Medi-Cal rate that the state has set. So if we can increase the amount of Medi-Cal of reimbursement, we will also get the benefit of additional money from Medicare. That has made, as you know, our hospitals had regrettably a long history of being marginal with respect to profitability, twice going into bankruptcy. So this would be a great help. The Supervisor Williams, who has promoted the idea, believes that it could generate as much as $40 million to the 3 hospitals in our county, which could make a considerable difference. If you look at our hospital, for example, 82% of all patients who are served by the hospital receive Medi-Cal and Medicare. So you can imagine the difference it would make. It would really help to turn things around. And again, let me say that that unless our hospital can get to the point where its finances are stable and becomes profitable, we have no guarantee that it will be here in the future. And I think all of us on the board, at least I believe, are committed to doing everything we can to make that happen. This appears to be a good idea, but fortunately, and I think it's wise of the Board of Supervisors to take some time and thoroughly research it. It is not a new idea that has been done in some other areas with success.
States.
Pardon?
Other states.
Other states, yeah. I believe one in Texas and one in Arizona. So, there were some questions raised about my Chair's Advisory Committee. Again, let me put this together, make it clear to you, this is an informal group that have asked to give me advice as Chair. And it's not meant to represent everybody. It's just meant to bring together people who have expressed concern. It's not particularly, it's not really exclusive. We'll probably be adding some more folks, especially from the hospital staff, that can help us inform it. The goal here is to work toward understanding what this hospital needs to be like in the year 2030. Okay, that point about approximately when we hopefully have much of the seismic retrofit completed by then, perhaps not all of it. We would hope to modernize facilities. Well, there are a whole lot of options that we're considering. Our goal is to make the hospital, again, profitable, because that's the only thing that's going to guarantee the long-term survival of the hospital in our community. Well, one of the critical issues we're exploring is what's the best approach to take towards surgery. Surgery is the one area that is very profitable for hospitals. Currently, all of the joint replacements of our members of our community here, if they come through the Anavedas Health System, are referred out to Howard. Okay, so our hospital's actually making the sale. And Howard's getting the fulfillment, Howard's tracking all the revenue, and that is not showing up on the books here. So that's a bit of a problem, but we've had some excellent discussion. We produced a whole lot of documents. I believe very firmly that the next step we need to make is a market study, and I have a proposal that has begun to be vetted and will bring back to the board at the earliest convenience, but I think that will help us if we're going to make millions of dollar decisions that have impact over millions of dollars. We need to make sure we're doing things that are data-driven. So with that, if there are any questions from the board members?
Yeah.
Yes, Ms. McGordy.
We talked about having community meetings. I don't know, have there been plans for
We
that?
haven't made any new plans.
Were we supposed to have a special meeting to plan that?
There's actually, well,
I
I
can't
haven't got
remember.
that far. No,
Oh.
we don't have anything, and I don't have it planned yet. I need to talk to the board members and the chair.
Okay, but it is in the works.
Absolutely, yes, and you'll see through the chair, in my board report, I say, this board needs to get out and meet in the outlying communities.
Yeah,
Director Ketson?
I would just be interested in knowing who your kitchen cabinet is.
Currently, it's Dr. Miller, it's Judy Leach, it's Peter Johnson, it's Davey Beek from Adventist Health, it's Director McGordy, Kathy Wiley, of course, is participating, Ted Williams, Charlene Spellman, Terry Ramos.
Charlene McAllister.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
And Robin?
Yeah.
and Robin.
I'm sorry.
Robin Garrity,
Robin Garrity, yeah. So that's the group currently.
Dudley.
The hospital, Dudley Campbell, our architect, and sometimes another member of the Devaney group. The hospital folks have requested that we include one of their surgeons. We're more than happy to do that. So we're trying to, these are knotty problems, okay? There's the model that we have currently that has been presented to the public shows doing all of the modifications within the existing structure, okay? That we know is possible for us to do, and we also know that we will have the resources enabled to do that. And while some of that money is certainly Measure C, let me point out that Measure C can't be spent without the permission of this board. So that really doesn't go to Adventist Health, and it's held by them somehow. That is still taxpayers' funds. So the alternative, and our CFO, Mr. Allen, is a big proponent of that. So for those of you interested, is what is called a freestanding surgical center that potentially could be built across right here in the open space that the district owns. That deserves some kind of consideration. It may be less expensive actually to build a freestanding surgery center than it would be to do the modifications in the hospital that were required. But all of this has to be thought about and considered very carefully. Finally, while the rest of us are there and listening, it's Adventist Health that has to take the lead role in determining what those things will be and how it will play out. Because our goal, again, let me reiterate, is to make the hospital sustainable for the long term, and that means profitable. So that's as far as we've gotten, and
Can I just question the concept of profitable as opposed to not losing money? Why does it have to be profitable?
so that it
No.
stays here.
Wait, so I'm asking the question because I want to know who in hospitals in the past were always nonprofit, right? So if we're being led into this is not profitable. This hospital on the coast is not. We know that. We want to solve that problem. But how much profit do we want it to make? And
I'm
as
not-
opposed to having a goal of having this hospital not be a burden on the Adventist Health program, because there's a difference between not being a burden and being profitable. Is Adventist Health asking us to produce 5% profit?
Adventist
4%?
Health, let me clarify that. Adventist Health is not asking us.
Okay, so
This is our initiative.
so I'm questioning our initiative to go for profitability as opposed to going for not losing money.
Okay, I can only say this hospital has faced bankruptcy twice. The third time it was on the verge of bankruptcy is when the board decided to bring in Adventist Health. Okay, we can call it whatever we want. My goal is, very simply, not to be in that situation again.
So will the profits, whatever they are, be put aside for that rainy day problem? Or will it go into the basic profitability administrative ball of wax of the Adventist Health and disappear? Or will it be put aside in a line item just in case this hospital has something happen that's an existential threat that causes a close to bankruptcy? Because if you're saying that the profitability, you brought up bankruptcy, so obviously profitability is something that helps avoid bankruptcy. Or if it does become bankrupt, that there's a place to get money so it doesn't.
Well,
So
our goal, Paul, the Director Katz, let me put it this
you
way.
can call me Paul, it's okay.
Yeah, no, well, I prefer, I'm happy to do that when we're together, but I try and be a little bit more formal there, but,
Okay.
okay, in terms of what we want long-term survivability of the hospital.
This is
Right.
true.
Right, that's the goal. And while we think, at least I believe, and other people may have different opinions, I believe that Adventist is an excellent partner for us. I really believe that. And I think they've done a lot of really good things to the hospital already. But if Adventist, for whatever reasons, their business model or whatever, would decide to depart from this community, could happen. I'm not saying it will. I'm not suggesting, please understand, that that's even on the horizon. But if they would, we would still want this hospital to be making enough money to be sustainable, right? So that's, I think, that's a good goal. Our interest is the community's interest, if I can define it that way.
Well,
Well, Director Savage.
Okay, I have a couple things to say. First off, my understanding of the functioning of the kitchen cabinet is you have a number of people who are stakeholders, who are interested people with certain levels of expertise. And whatever that group comes up with would be advisory to the board, and it would be this body that would make a determination whether or not whatever direction that group in terms of profitability or sustainability or whichever, however we want to do it, that would be up to us.
Absolutely.
Anyway, and there would be, I'm assuming, massive conversation about that. The other reason I raised my hand earlier, though, is I did want to clarify because just to make sure, because we did say that we wanted to have a special meeting of this body to share and discuss what we heard in the community meetings out there.
You're right.
And I'm think that's what you were referring to, that really cannot fall off the radar screen. And I absolutely agree that we need to, on an ongoing basis, be out in the community and continue to connect with people, because those have been very, very fruitful. But we also need to not just have it go in a bucket someplace and then on to the next thing, because there's some really important things that got said and shared that I think would be really worthwhile for us to discuss and also to share with the community as well, in terms of what we heard.
Okay.
So
yeah.
don't forget about that.
Okay, thank you. And by the way, the other thing I wanted to mention about bid that I forgot to is that, again, going back to the business improvement district, is that I did testify before the Board of Supervisors and spoke in favor of that. But at the same time, I want you to know I made it clear that I was speaking on behalf of myself and not on behalf of the board. Okay? Okay, Paul, Director Katz, you raised some interesting questions, but let's continue to see how
I
this
just
moves
thought,
forward.
well,
Okay?
no,
Yeah,
I don't want to
I have
bury
a
this yet.
Question.
You're on.
Is this on? Okay. Do
You
you
have to
think that,
speak closer to it.
do you think that we need to write a letter to the legislature as a rural hospital supporting this, whatever it is? The, extending the seismic thing, 1432?
1432.
We certainly could, if the board would choose to authorize that, we could write a letter of support. Certainly, we could issue one.
Because, the rural hospitals are the ones that are really
Yeah.
tanking and have the problem.
Yeah, it's a serious problem for all rural hospitals in the
I
state.
ju-
So, do you,
I just would like to make one final statement. I didn't want to bury this without, this concept of profitability is really deeper than just money. And because what happens is when I say how much profit do we need? What's our aim? And you came back with the concept of, well, if Adventist isn't meeting its goals and objectives, and you didn't say it exactly this way.
I didn't say Adventist,
but-
I said the hospital.
Okay. Well, right now, the hospital can't be separated, really, from Adventist. We always come back to this fear that that Adventist is going to disappear from us because we're not doing something, it's not profitable, or it's not sustainable, or whatever, or something that we're going to do. I am tired of hearing this excuse or this comment, not necessarily from you, but from all of us, that we're afraid that Adventist is going to disappear. We got to solve this problem. This is like a systemic, existential threat that always seems to be there. And Adventist is notorious, as we know, and I will say this, I wish Judy Leach was here, is notorious for not sharing information. So we have to know, what is their plan? What are we up against? What is going on with our partner? Why aren't they talking to us? They're talking to you, but
Well-
they're,
Okay, Director Katzov, let me,
Yeah.
excuse me, but if I
Go
may.
ahead.
One of the key things that has emerged from these discussions, and we have now learned a whole lot up from them, okay? For instance, we learned very on what their priorities were, and I've reported those on my last report to you. Secondly, we learned that, and it was really good news, that they're currently equipping a mobile unit so they can provide some of their services in more remote parts of our district. That we didn't know. So that was a good thing to know about. We've also had other discussions, like I say, with these options. And before we go anywhere, as Director Savage pointed out, anything that comes from that group will have to go to planning, and then it will have to go to finance, and then it'll have to come to the board. So we will be in a long-term process of vetting all of these kinds of things. The goal I have in mind for the group is to see if we can come to some kind of agreement we are required to file a plan with HCI, that's again the state agency, right? Right, in January. So my goal is to help get us to the point where we have a solid plan with broad concurrence. One of the dimensions of this, and that's one of the key reasons why the foundation has been invited, is that while we can do the building, we have enough money to take care of the building. Once whether we modify the surgical ward or put in a new one, there's millions of dollars of equipment that have to then go into that facility, right? And I'm hoping that the foundation could be a major assist in funding some of that, as they have been for some of the critical services in the past. So that way they have a major stake in this too. I believe that part of this, what will make the hospital successful, is if we can develop a strong sense of philanthropy in this community. The community, I believe, has the resources. And it's a question of, can we give them something? I mean, we've all heard in the past about concerns about the hospital. Can we give this community something they can really be proud of and get behind? I think we can. Does that make sense?
Of course it makes sense.
Okay, well, if that, let's move on to our next report. Ms. Garrity, can we call on you?
Good evening. Thank you, Chair Garza. I'm pleased to be here again tonight to provide an update on communication and outreach. This past few weeks, we've been working, I've been working with the agency administrator to revamp the organization website to be easier for folks to navigate. This includes reorganizing the layout, reducing duplicative posts and pages of information, and creating pages that will easily provide district updates and showcasing current activities for Adventist Health and/or the district. We also, the topic of community outreach meetings has come up a couple of times tonight. That summary of information is pulled together. We're going to post that to the website once there's a little bit of reorganization that's being done by our IT folks, or your IT folks, actually. And I do know that there's been some discussion. Kathy and I have talked about how to organize and reach the underserved population of the district, and to go back and do regular updates and meetings with the Latinx community. So I believe that will be coming your way soon. We continue to broaden the social media outreach, creating graphics with healthcare district information. We're starting a new series, a Did You Know series, creating informational posts about the hospital district and tying in information from Adventist Health. And then other ongoing communication projects. We're going to work to create a monthly email that would follow the board meeting. That the district's website has a place for people to put their names in and email addresses in to receive updates from the district. And so our goal is to create a once a month communication following the board meeting with information that was shared at your meeting, and other projects as needed. Thank you.
Yes, I have almost every person of Spanish descent that I have spoken to and asked about what they think about the word Latinx, or whatever, however you say it, with the X at the end, was a white person's way. And that is, I mean, now, I don't have a lot of Latino friends, but I have enough to make that statement. So I want to make sure that as we attempt to relate to the Latino community, that we don't make any mistakes, because we don't have much room for mistake. So I just wanted to bring that up so you can think about that in your writing and in how we address our Latino community. And there's another community that I've been working really strongly with, and there's a word that I would like to have us not use, if it's possible, and that's the word alternative when it comes to different kinds of therapeutic modalities. And I would like that when we're referring to alternative, in quotes, therapeutic modalities, for example, like cannabis health, and psychedelic health, and traditional native health, that we use the word traditional instead of alternative. Wherever the word alternative comes up, we are tuned into the fact that that is not the way practitioners think, because alternative as opposed to mainstream or Western medicine, we got this kind of thing. We don't want to insult or diminish by using the word alternative. So I'd like to just ask the board and ask you as part of the work you're doing to think about those things.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good observation. Thank you. Any more questions? This is just receive and file. We're not doing anything.
For your transparency comments.
Yeah, well, sorry. Move on to, we have a hospital facilities tour report. Director McGordy?
So on January 11th, I met with Peter Johnston, the Coast Hospital Facility Manager, for a tour of the Coast Hospital. I was expecting a quick 2-bit walkthrough showing, but it turned out to be the $1 million docent tour. Other people who joined us were Kathy, our executive director, Davey Beck, the supervisor for the ambulances, Terry Ramos, the fund chairman of the chairman of the Mendocino Coast Hospital Fund.
Foundation.
Foundation.
Healthcare Foundation.
And Kyle Brooks, who's an engineer for Adventist Health. Peter showed us the ins and outs of all the different buildings and shared their current and previous uses. He also showed us each of the power sources and explained the complicated working of hospitals. Many of the unused rooms in the older part of the hospital were filled with extra beds and equipment from the days prior to Adventist. And I realized that the lifespan of hospital equipment is measured like dog years. One might think 10 years is not long for an extremely expensive piece of equipment, but measured in dog years, it's 70 years old. Thus, many things are in need of replacing. The catch is that complete replacement might trigger the need to comply with current regulations on other things, creating even more expense. So often extending the life of an old piece of equipment by fixing it is cheaper and wiser in the short run. Adventist Health has done a wonderful job with the material structure in the time they've been here. The exterior walls have been patched and painted with special paint to eliminate water damage or water leakage. And the interior walls have been painted soothing colors. New floors have been installed, and I was impressed with how lovely the patient areas are. Everything is very clean and spotless. We visited the kitchen, which was busy preparing the food we'd seen staff carrying in to-go boxes as they scurried down the halls. We met Sherry, the director of imaging, and Sue, the director of the lab, which is expecting exciting, up-to-date equipment soon. We saw the new ice machines that Kylie managed to acquire, and we learned of the positive-negative airflow. Don't ask me to explain it. Peter shared an incredible amount of information and ended the tour in the control room with the huge, scary power circuit machines. And afterwards, he graciously showed me the new van that will serve as a mobile clinic. When it's ready, it will be a fantastic resource for the community and the district. Although I have only been recently acquainted with the Coast Hospital and the Mendocino Healthcare District, my finding from this tour is that Adventist is doing a great job and is a worthy partner for planning local health care for our future.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board or Mr. McGordy's report? seeing none, before we get to Director Katz's report, with apologies to him, one of the things I failed to do is we had decided before the board meeting that we have these young people who are assisting us every board meeting from Mendocino High School. And we thought it would be very appropriate if we introduced them to you each meeting, and so we intend to going forward. So Marshall, would you please introduce your folks?
This is Enzo Abuyak, our only student here today. Everyone else is either out of the county or taking a break because it is summer vacations.
Okay. Enzo, would you come on up so people can see you? Come on, let's get it.
In front of the camera.
You can go to the mic.
Yeah.
You can go to the mic, Enzo, because you have something to tell this board about what you're going to do.
Yeah, we can't see it on the mic.
Sure.
This next school year, I'm doing an exchange program in Switzerland for
And you
10
leave
months,
August
16th.
16.
Where are you going?
Switzerland.
So we're honored to have him here. Just before he heads off on his life-changing trip. So good luck. Thank you for your time here today. I know it's maybe not what a teenager wants to do on a Thursday night, so thank you.
Thank you. So, and I will try to remember to do this at the top of the meeting, but I think we really appreciate the work that we get from them. And, you can't get a better price. It's very good and can't get a price. And so with apologies, Director Katz, your turn.
Well, as the vice chair, what comes along with the vice chair role is the chairman of the planning committee. And one of the things that's interesting about the planning committee is that it has been basically, it has been Paul Garza and myself, and we've had lots of discussions about mostly one thing that has been on my mind for 50 years, and I've been a promoter of this idea of building another institution in the community. So a lot of Paul and I talked a lot about the level of economic development this might bring. However, and we were both, Paul was not at the last meeting because we have rearranged the board to be more in line with the individual members' interests. So Paul has joined the Finance Committee, and I've inherited Susan, which we talked about. It would be a great thing for the two of us to work together. Unfortunately, Susan wasn't able to attend the meeting. She had an emergency that she had to deal with, so we couldn't hold an official meeting. But we just sat around the table, a few of us, myself, Kathy, the general, sorry, I'm bad at names. Michael, and Terry Ramos, and Gabe Maroney, and we just had a conversation about things. We talked a little bit about the community cannery and its relationship to Blue Zone principles, and how important health and nutrition is, and the concept of food sovereignty and food security and sustainability, all those kinds of topics that come out when you talk about food and nutrition and its relationship to healthcare. And then we moved on to, we made no, well, basically, we talked about the need for a feasibility study and for funding a feasibility study. And that gets pretty complicated right now, but I'll have a report for the next meeting on the parameters of what a feasibility study would be and how we're going to go about finding the right organization or consultancy to do this feasibility study, of whether or not we can make a new institution build a new institution from the ground up instead of from the top down. And usually from the ground up means that you're going to try and see if you can piggyback onto some already existing community organization, or create a community organization that is grassroots. The other way to do it is from the top down. Let's go after $2 million and build it and see if they will come. So I believe that a study is essential, and the planning committee will come back to the board with a proposal for a feasibility study and funding of it. But there's a problem that I've had that brings up the next topic that we talked about, and that is that when you get, and this is why I was so questioning you about your kitchen cabinet, because I put in I think I mentioned at the last meeting, or perhaps I sent an email to the board, that I wanted each board member to be able to select one or two people to participate on the planning committee. Because when one person, like myself, gets an idea and wants to drive it, when you have a small committee, that person can actually drive everybody nuts with it, with the idea. And through persistence, get it through. I think I've spent 20 months trying to convince and educate the board about how it would be wonderful to have this idea attached to the healthcare district, because it will connect us with about 80% of the people who live here, who all, pretty much 80% of the people who live here grow things. So it gives us a lot of entree into the community and a lot of exposure, aside from the benefits of health and welfare. So we talked about that. We also talked about community health as opposed to Western medicine health modalities like the hospital. So we talked about all the different possible, all the community, I don't want to call them experts, but I want to call them practitioners of traditional modalities. And we expanded on that, and finally, so getting back to the kitchen cabinet, I believe what you did was an excellent idea, and that's why I was questioning it and wanted to know who was part of it. Then there's this other thing about planning, and I sent Kathy a question, and do you recall the topic that I asked you about? How does one thing relate to how does the planning committee relate to the rest of the board? I mean, planning is a gigantic topic. It's a topic that should not be siloed into a planning committee unless the planning committee is very broad-based. So what I'm saying is that I've been very comfortable working with Paul over the last couple of months, or 5 or 6 months since you've been on. But it's gotten to the point where I'm beginning to feel personally out on a limb, or being too powerful in too small a group. And I want it to change, and I need your help. I can go out and get all my cohorts, anybody I want, but I don't want to do that. If I go out, it's the same thing. It's like, it doesn't broaden the perspective. So I'm asking each board member to add to this committee, so the board members are represented equally with me. And does that make sense?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I think in our early discussions, I encourage you to kind of go this direction. I think it's great.
Well, I took your advice, so I expect your vote. And Kathy, if you took notes of this
I did,
informal
I just
meeting-
didn't get a chance to type them
No,
up.
I'm not asking, do you have a memory?
I do,
Did I?
mostly.
Well, you're younger than me, so your memory is probably better than mine. Did I leave anything out, or did?
I think the only thing is you might want to talk about the symposium.
Ah, yes, the symposium. On September 6th, at Town Hall, there will be a symposium that will be chaired by myself, hopefully videoed for the community as a learning tool, and we will begin the discussion of traditional therapeutic modalities by inviting 4 practitioners who are well-known not only in our community, but around the country, to talk about their approach to community health and how their modality and the way they practice can impact positively the community. Gabriel Maroney will be present, and he will talk for, each person will have 8 minutes. Gabe will talk about herbal and wildcrafting and medicinals. Dr. Richard Miller will talk about psychedelic modalities and how he practices. And we'll have Jude Tillman, who owns Dragonfly, talk about cannabis as a medical modality. And the 4th, why do I have?
Yeah,
Ah, yes, it's just not in my social structure. Uwe Wesley from Fortunate Farms and Native American, we'll talk about Native American medicine. At Fortunate Farms, there's a garden that produces medicinal plants that Native American people use, and that they're just another practice. So we have those, and there are other modalities in the community. For example, there's a woman who does detoxification, ionization detoxification. There are all kinds, and we need to explore all these and figure out how to get them not only involved in community health, but how to make their services available to everybody. We have a richness of healthcare practitioners that deal in wellness and health, not in sickness. And they can't fix broken bones. That's the hospital's job. But there's a whole lot to a healthy community that is more than a hospital, and that's sort of going to happen on the 6th. The format will be, they'll sit around and each one will have their moment to talk about their practice and how, and then we will have a fluid conversation between them and the audience. It won't be highly structured, so there'll be a lot of engagement. And I'll make sure that happens, and I know they will too. So it's on September 6th. It's the first Friday, and
What time?
6 to 7:30.
6 to 7:30, 90 minutes. Did I leave anything out?
I don't think
And
so.
we're going to create, Kathy and I are going to work with a local artist to create a poster that can be given to all the businesses to hang on their bulletin boards, that could be put on telephone poles and used digitally to announce this approach. We want to fill town hall, and we want to do it in Spanish as well as in English. So we're going to work on that. We have about 6 to 8 to 7 weeks, and hopefully we will begin the expansion of the concept of health in this community, and hopefully create enough information for people to have conversations at home, knowing that they got enough words and enough concepts. One of the most powerful things that Paul, our chairman, talked to me about when we were having our meetings together was a study that was done that tried to assess the difference between the Asian community and the Latino community in terms of education and success in education of their children. And the study found that the only difference between, because we know that the Asian community is really has a really good record of success in terms of education of their children and moving on into higher education or whatever. The only difference that they found was that the Asian community had family discussions almost every day about education, and the Latino community didn't have as much. So to be able to give people the ability to talk about health and wellness in their family discussions requires them having some kind of juice, something to hang on to, some question to ask each other. And I'm hoping that through these kind of symposiums, we can educate the community so the conversation can be much broader than just talking about the hospital. So I guess that's as much of a report as I can give off the cuff.
And if there are questions for directors?
Any questions?
No?
I'm good at questions.
Directors? Great. Okay. Okay, let me begin to help you if I don't really like to put people on the spot, but if Mr. Blaisdell is willing, I would be happy to appoint him to this planning committee. Is that acceptable to you? Okay. So if there's no objection from the board, we will appoint Mr. Blaisdell. So now you have at least one more member.
Thank you.
That's a start. Okay, thank you. Okay, our agency administrator, Ms. Wiley.
Thank you. I'm sharing my agency report. I have a copy in your packet there, and I want to assure you that my focus continues to be on the fiscal responsibility and transparency for the district residents and to the board, facilities maintenance and planning, compliance issues, and community engagements. Those are the 4 things I think about every day, all day long. And I'm not going to read my report to you, but I do want to highlight that I think this board must prioritize maintaining and managing this coastal hospital facility that the public owns so that our partner operator, Adventist Health, can continue to operate our local, rural, critical access, frontier hospital and the related local medical services for our district residents. We have an opportunity to discuss and approve the development and modernization of our outpatient facilities. It's an opportunity for this community to come together in visualizing and creating a future coast hospital facility. So we find ourselves in some important crossroads. I detail a little more about what the advisory group is up to. And basically, my take on that advisory group is that they're gathering information to come to this board so that the board can make the most informed decision about which way you want to go on your facilities management plan. Under compliance, I we have a meeting planned soon with the ad hoc committee on policies and the board bylaws. And you'll remember that's a recommendation from the grand jury that we get that fixed. I'm also working on the grand jury's report response draft so that you will be able to consider that at next month's meeting, and that'll meet our deadline for September 13th or 12th. I've started to work on the annual public report. As you know, the board hasn't prepared one or released one to the public in recent years, so I plan to have a draft in front of you in the August meeting as well. And just in terms of compliance, we are now MendocinoCHCD.gov, and that was a state requirement that we complete before January 1, 2025. And just as an aside, I put the application in very early February, got the notification 5 months later. So I envision that the districts that waited are going to have a real bear of a time meeting that deadline because the state was pretty slow on that.
Again, we are what? MH?
MendocinoCHCD.gov.
Mendocino, okay,
Community Health Care District, yep.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And then we also, of course, have to migrate over to the email address, ending MendocinoCHCD.gov. So you'll be getting instructions on how to save the email that you've got if you want to, and migrate over to this new system. In terms of community engagement, I'm happy you brought the subject up today. We have convened 7 community listening sessions in Westport, Casper, Mendocino, Comchi, Elk, and 2 meetings in Fort Bragg in both Spanish and English. The common themes and comments are in my report. I won't read all of them to you either, but depending on which group we spoke to, there were distinct different needs. And I would say in general, the people that attended our meetings were interested in geriatric care and all those associated outpatient services. In general, the Hispanic or Latino community was more interested in the youth service, I won't call them youth, in younger adult services, obstetrics, being able to deliver on the coast was important to them. And then they also had concerns around, it was more than prenatal. No, it was the drug addictions.
Drug addiction.
That might be associated with treatments, opioid treatments. And so that was a concern that they voiced. So transportation was another common theme. People have a hard time getting here to the hospital. And in particular for the Hispanic community, they were concerned that that they don't feel, I guess confident is the word, in translations. And they mentioned, having 8-year-old grandson coming and translating for important medical appointments as a concern. And so maybe there's some room there that the district can give some thought to some of those issues. I will get a community meeting share out scheduled, and I'll have to get you a date when that works for this board. And then I attached a press release. This was on the Hospital Services Improvement District that Chair Garza talked about earlier this evening. So you can look through that. Pardon me, I'm not sure that it ran in today's paper. It was supposed to, but they don't have a lot of local room anymore. And then finally, I attached it's called a Market Assessment and Facilities Projection Report by the Innova Group. It's dated 2022, so it's a few years old. But it's useful in that these are a lot of the things that we have to start thinking about. You, the board, when you decide what you're going to do about your facilities. All of these findings come into play about how Adventists can run their business. And to your point, Director Katzoff, about profitability, I think that the conversations I've heard are about sustaining the business as it is, and it's not that it's not a profit center for Adventist Health in fact, probably exactly the opposite. And so we need to maintain the facilities so that they can stay licensed, and that's the focus, I believe, of the 2030 group. Anyway, so there's some important things. I encourage you to look at this report. We're going to be distributing more reports to the full board that the 2030 group has seen so far, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Director,
I'd like to make-
questions?
May I?
Director, I saw
Okay.
Director Savage first.
Okay.
Oh, okay. It was really interesting, your synopsis of the topics or whatever that came up, because for me, at least the 3 that I went to, every meeting had a particular thing that came out as a really strong point. And maybe because of communication notes, et cetera, at the COMCHI meeting, what was, I think, really significant that I don't see reflected in here was a real concern about not just hospitals for hospitalization, but hospitals for radiology, the lab, all the various supports
Services.
that also are available and need to be enhanced for people in the community, not just people who are having surgeries or coming for other things, but just the diagnostic, preventive kind of things that might be added to the list as
Okay.
well.
I'll get with you on that. That was
Yeah.
the one meeting I couldn't attend, so I don't
Yeah.
have as good a notes
Yeah,
on
well, I
that
just want to
one.
make sure that people feel that we were actually listening and
We're
paying
listening.
attention.
Director Katza?
Yes. The most important thing that I think I've learned from this information gathering, I've been to a few, is the separation of the Latino community from this hospital. And there's a simple, fast way to change that, and that is to hire, actually, and pay for translators or a director of translation, and then begin to use, because I saw a staff person who was a service person here at the hospital who was Latino, whatever, be asked to leave her space to translate. We can translate this into Spanish by using an iPhone, but you need a director, you need somebody. The hospital needs to recognize that 40% of this community, at least in the high school, which reflects the number of families and the size of this community, the hospital needs to have an active and engaging and interesting ability to translate in the moment. Not, I'm going to call somebody up to come down. I mean, it has to be everywhere. The Caucasian community is aging out. We're not going to be here. The same population that's living here now is not going to be here after they get to be 90 or whatever. There'll be a new population coming in of climate change, refugees who are coming to the coast for the coolness of the climate. So if we want to honor the First Nations and the second and the people who are here now, and make sure that they're secure, that they get what they need now, we can create a culture here that will be based on their being here now, not based on a future population. So the hospital has an absolute obligation to be able to talk with the community. Would love to see this board deal with this issue with money and reality, and not just consult it out, not just see this as, well, all we need is a bunch of translators, because they need to be coordinated with they need the words, they need to learn. There's a training, medical terms are different than everyday language. So we have to do this. This is our obligation to that community, and if we want to engage in that community, I can tell you, they want to engage with us. I was at Casper Fest. I'm sorry to run on, but I'm going to do it. At Casper Fest.
Director Castle, I did call on you for a question, okay? I didn't want to make that
I
point.
want to, I'm trying to educate, all right? At Casper Fest last week, the Casper community invited the Latino community to come and with their culture, bring your culture, bring your dancing, bring your poetry, and they came. And it was a really beautiful interaction between two communities becoming one, at least for a moment in time. And but I believe that the next step will be them inviting us. But we have to earn that. And one of the ways to earn it is to respect language and communication and make a real effort, not a phony effort, not a quiet effort, but a strong, powerful effort to do this right.
Sounds like a planning
Okay,
program.
well, Director Katzif, I must commend you for your advocacy for the Latino community. I appreciate it very much. And there are some very good models available for teaching what's called medical Spanish across the board, so that, because you're absolutely right, the medical vocabulary is very different, doesn't translate easily, and the last thing you want is to have young children who do not have that medical terminology, so it's dangerous. So I think it's worthy to explore. We'll be looking for potential recommendation from planning on that? Okay, great. Look forward to that very much. Okay, with that, let's move on to our consent calendar. Are there any items that board members want to pull at this point?
That's number 4. Tab.
We have 3 items here, minutes, ad hoc committee assignment, moving me to finance and Director Savage to planning officially. And then, because we've got a conflict, changing our board member meeting to August 22nd, 24th. Hearing no,
Wait. You're moving a
Down
meeting?
here, yeah, down here.
the 29th to the 22nd. But I believe the reason the room is not available on the 29th, what was?
No, a board member has a conflict.
Oh, okay, okay.
Well, and if I could address that, it wasn't just that we have a conflict. Part of the weirdness of our bylaws is because right now our bylaws say that we meet on the last Thursday of the month, which is a little hard because sometimes that means 5 weeks in, sometimes it means 4 weeks in, and it does weird things to the calendar. So this would actually be consistent with the bylaws recommendation
Coming up.
for amendment that you may hopefully someday get a
Next
chance
month.
to hear. I'm hoping.
Okay, is there anything that board members want to pull at this point? Okay, hearing none, then I call in public comment on the consent calendar. Mr. McDonald?
First of all, I would ask that a board member pull item 5B. Excuse me, I'm looking on the wrong month, I think. It's 4A, the draft minutes. There's, within that, item 5B on the draft minutes does not contain information as to who seconded the motion. I'd also like to point out that
I'm sorry, I'm not following. What are we,
He's saying in the minutes,
the
item
minutes for
5B.
last,
in the minutes of 5B, okay, I was going over to the other, yeah, okay, thank you.
so I'd also like to point out that on this agenda, other than the consent calendar, there is nothing that provides for public input on anything, including all the financial items brought to us by our CFO.
That's correct,
And
because these are all
that's-
reports.
That's,
The public comment, Mr. McDonald, is for those
I'm
items
still
that the board.
talking and you're interrupting me.
Mr. McDonald, I'm chair, I have the, okay.
So you can
Items,
always
item-
interrupt the
items,
public?
No, he was
I don't think that's appropriate.
He was just trying to answer.
Okay.
Yeah, but I would like
Items-
to finish before he answers.
Okay, go ahead and finish, go ahead.
So the chair in his chair reports has cited, his knowledge about the financial matters, which was part of my opening comment, that should be the purview of the CFO and the treasurer, not being dictated to us by a chair who wants to sort of look like a popinjay. But he's also commented that, we're being transparent with the public about our finances. And I would commend Mr. Allen for his work, but we're not providing the public a chance to ask questions by this process that this chair has invoked of having information items only become more and more prevalent on the agenda. In the past, for years and years and years, most agenda items were classified as discussion/action, so there would always be a potential for public input. This is just a tactic by Mr. Garza to keep out public comment. Probably specifically me, but also the rest of the public. And it just doesn't fly. And it kind of ties into Director Katzeff's comments about communicating with the community. If you won't listen to anything from the community, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to get bonds passed. You're not going to really communicate. Okay. The reason I raised my hand earlier and then wasn't allowed to ask was fortunately the item that Director Savage, and thank you for bringing it up, was not to forget about having a special meeting for the community input that happened in all the different meetings from Fort Bragg, Westport, Comchie, et cetera. So that's just an example of, it could have been clarified right there in 30 seconds or less, but no, Mr. Garza won't allow for the public to have input almost at all. This is the only time I can kind of sneak it in. Thank you.
Okay. With that, do we have a motion? Any public comments on the consent calendar?
Can I ask, is the question appropriate?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And this would be a question for Mr. McDonald, is that appropriate?
Now, let's move on.
Well,
Let's move
but
on.
it has to do with a motion to pull an item from the consent calendar, and
Right.
so I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
It's
So-
not appropriate to address questions to the public. This is a time for the dais to only address each other. Sorry, it's not appropriate in a meeting to engage with public.
Garza, I might be able to answer what I
Let's
think.
let Director Savage finish.
Well, my question was, it sounded like there was a concern about the minutes of the previous meeting, and I don't know exactly what the concern is.
I did.
And
I heard it.
if it's appropriate, I'll pull it so I can find out what the concern is. Or if you have information about that, that would be helpful.
Chair Garza? Through the chair?
Yeah.
Mr. McDonald is citing that item 5B on the motion that Secretary Savage made, there was no second noted in the minutes. And because Director Spring voted no, and Director Katzeff was absent, it would have either been Garza or Director McGurty. Do either of the two of you remember? I believe it was McGurty also.
Yes.
So we could note McGurty as fixed that item.
Yes. So in note of that Scrivener error, a motion can be made to accept the consent calendar as it stands with the correction to be added within the final minutes. And I do want to say thank you very much to Mr. McDonald for catching that. That was great appreciation. There's a lot of eyes. I mean, there were plenty of reviews, but it doesn't need to be pulled. It's noted and will be corrected before it is signed and finalized for the record.
No.
Okay, do you have a motion? Do you have a
Well,
motion for
Janet has her
consent?
hand up.
I'll
McGorty?
move to approve the consent calendar with the correction of the minutes.
Okay, and I'll second that.
No second, okay. Moved and seconded. Any more comments from board? Director Katzeff?
No.
Okay, then roll call vote, please.
Okay, Paul Katzeff.
Yes.
Jan McGorty?
Yes.
Susan Savage, yes. Sarah Spring, absent. Paul Garza.
Yes.
So consent calendar is approved.
Okay, fine. Let's go on to new business now. Mr. Allen, you have a series of reports for us.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Loud and
Okay.
clear.
Let me begin with 5A, the operations expenditures by vendor. And this is a report of discretionary items that the board had control over. Thank you for putting that up, Kathy. And it's for, like I said, the last fiscal year that just ended, June 30. It's a similar type document, but it has more detail by vendor that you just approved last month in the fiscal 24-25 budget. It totals 627, little over 627,000. The books still remain open for that last fiscal year, standard accounting practice to hold them up open for 1 month. So there could be some slight, if there's some late invoices, they'll get booked into this and it could change the total slightly. I don't expect any sizable change, but if that happens, I'll bring it forward to the next board meeting. So if there, and you'll see, obviously, it sticks out like a sore thumb. The largest expenditure was the Vaney Group, 265,000, and that's for the engineering studies for seismic, for all the work that they do there, the plans and the documentation and the reviews there. So it is a large sum of money, but it's going to the seismic type evaluation. So if there's any other comments about any particular vendor, let me get them answered now.
Expenditures for last year. Yes, Director McGordy.
Yeah, I mean, I see the list, but why isn't there a column saying what it's for? I mean, I see people's names, but there's no indication of.
Kathy, I can't hear Jan. Okay.
So I'm wondering why is this on? Yeah. There isn't a column explaining what the expenditures are for. I mean,
Not
I
a
see
column
people's
for what?
explaining the expenditures.
Oh, okay,
We don't know
yeah,
why they're being
no, I
paid.
understand. And I can go down and do that and bring the report back next month. I can indicate what legal and, like I said, engineering and various short descriptions.
That would be really helpful to me. That's how I keep books.
No, and I agree with you, yes.
Great.
Yeah,
Yeah, those of us who've been on the board longer this may make some sense. It would also be important to the public, I think, when this gets published to see that. So, great point, Director McGordy.
Yeah, and you'll see another down there was a surprise to me, Mendocino County Auditor, somewhat in the middle of 20,455. That surprised me too, because normally the county takes their administrative fee out of the tax collection and gives us a net taxes. Well, apparently for the year that just ended, they didn't do that, and they paid us the gross taxes, and now had to pay them their administrative fee. So that's what that is. The right invoice came in July, came in late. So it's a good point what you made, Jan, about.
Mr. Allen, you raise an important question. Are we certain that we didn't have that deducted earlier?
Yes, I've reviewed it. Yes, I've reviewed it with them and their website, and they're not picking on us. They're doing it to everybody who receives tax money. So, and you can see them out there, and they're their letter is their invoice. It's kind of a sloppy way to do it, but that's says, please accept this letter as your invoice for these services. So anyway,
I'm sure Director McGordy is appreciating the fact that at least they're invoicing these days.
so I'll put a description on it and bring it back next month.
Thank you. You want to move on to then 5B, if that's appropriate, if there are no more questions on 5A? Questions? Okay, yeah, let's go. Go for it.
Okay, we'll get under 5B. It's the check register for this fiscal year, the first month of this fiscal year, only through July 22nd, beginning July 1. If you go down about halfway, you see Mendocino County Auditor that we just talked about. Their letter came in and it got paid in July, but it's going to be recorded at last year's fiscal expense. But obviously the cash moved out of our bank account in July. So there's a good example of what I just said. So if you got any questions about the other large item is at the top, the semi-annual payment that we now make, put the money in the Wells Fargo bank that Adventist Health holds, and it has gone up now to the semi-annual payment on July 1 that I made, and it'll be January 1, the same amount of $1,125,512. So that's 250,000 for the year. So it's everyone talks about it started at 2 million, yes, but now it's been inflated 4 years later to a higher amount. Okay.
Director McGordy, same comment?
Yeah, I have the same comment. For example, Adventist Health Mendocino Coast, it's like, so why are we giving them $1 million when they only pay X amount in rent? I don't get it. But if there's a column that says, this is for their operations.
It's a Measure C.
Well, yeah, something.
Yeah, right, Measure C
Right?
funding.
Another good comment, and thank you. I'll put that in there, and I'm going to keep the comments short because you'll get familiar with them. So good. I'll bring that back.
Measure C, the Measure C committee approves an expenditure, and of course, then it comes to the board.
Okay, can I clarify, because at least that's not my understanding of what this is? That there is, under the lease agreement, there is an amount of money that is, according to the lease, has nothing to do with Measure C, is restricted maintenance, or I forget what the name of the account is, but that's an amount of money that is, as part of the lease agreement, is held for Adventist Health for ongoing maintenance. And so we collect rent, we then also pay for maintenance, and above and beyond that is the issue of Measure C money. That those are different things, and maybe we all need to get clarification.
I believe that's reversed, but let's check with the person.
Yeah, we have the expert on.
We have the person who negotiated the lease, so
Yes.
if I'm incorrect.
Let me add to that. What are you looking at now, or any?
Well, we're
Okay.
questioning
Let
what we talked about today,
Let's
what you explained to me.
go back to that check register and the $1,125,512.
Yes.
That includes Major C tax collections, and they average about 1.5 million, so $750,000 for the semi-annual payment. 750,000 of that is Measure C, and the remainder almost 750, so almost another little over 400,000 is supplemental funding from the district, from its operating fund. It's not tax, well, it's tax money that we get too, but it's operating fund money. It's not Measure C. So there's a combination put into the improvements fund, which is for repairs and maintenance and equipment. And then during the course of the last 4 years, Adventist is supposed to provide an annual listing of projects. It's reviewed with the district's Measure C committee and the board. And the Measure C items are identified and segregated accounting wise. And then if there's anything that's not Measure C, then it's that supplemental money is tapped by Adventist Health. So I guess it's as simple as that. What we tried to do is combine two funds because they have similar purposes and put them into the custody of Adventist Health to manage them and do it timely and not get bogged down with waiting for a board to decide this or that. Get that in their hands where they can make quick decisions and they can tap the money that's in there. They have to give an annual report at the end of the year. So we're expecting a report for June 30 year end that has not been received yet, but it's a report of what the expenditures were and what the amount was. And was it Measure C or was it district supplemental money? So that's the, and when we get to the end here, I'll look at it right now. Well, we can maybe all look at it. Very last item is 5B. And that Wells Fargo account looks like now, that's in possession of Adventist Health, is $24,000 short of $6 million. $5,976,920 is in that account.
It's the last page.
Almost $6 million. And so, and I had a report earlier at the Measure C committee, and I went to the board also, is Measure C money that is in that Wells Fargo account was, I'm going to round it off, was just a little over $700,000 remaining. And then we put in another 1.125, so, and then about 400 of that is supplemental, but so basically probably about 1.5 million of that 6 million. 1.5 million is Measure C. The other 4.5 million is supplemental funding by the district. And it's commingled. I have an issue that I'm taking up with them right now because of the lack of reporting for 3 or 4 years, and I don't see any interest income being credited to this transaction, which is not acceptable. That's such a large amount with interest rates where they are now. There needs to be. I mean, I could earn on $6 million. I can earn $300,000 a year. So it's not an insignificant sum of money that's being tied up there. And, well, that's the end of the comment on it.
If we can get back to, I think, the question that Director Savage asked, then the explanation of the 1.125 is 750,000 Measure C, the rest is a supplemental district funds.
How much did you say was Measure C?
700, well, I believe you told us it was 750,000 of that amount is Measure C.
Correct, yes, I didn't
The
hear it.
rest is
So,
supplemental.
yeah, you stated
Okay.
that. And by the way, Mr. Chair, we have not received the 750,000 yet. We don't get our tax money till October, November range, sometimes December, and March. So we've advanced the full amount of 1,125,000 out of district funds to meet that obligation. And then we'll get it paid back, but at the moment, that's how the cash flows, but,
Does that answer your question, Director Savage? Is that?
Well, here's what I'm feeling.
Okay.
Because since the time I've been on the board, which is now coming on 2 years, every time I think I have a handle on exactly the relationship between the lease payment, the money that we're obligated to pay toward ongoing maintenance, and Measure C, every time I think I've got it down and I've got it, something gets said like tonight that appears that my understanding of it is absolutely not correct. So I don't know what the solution to that is. I don't know if I need a one-on-one tutorial from Mr. Allen or from someone else, but what got said tonight is not at all my understanding. And if I'm going to be, and if I can finish, if I'm going to be an intelligent board member and understanding this finances, I think it's important that each one of us have a firm grasp on exactly the relationship between all those funds.
I think you're absolutely right. I couldn't agree with you more. It's taken me quite a while to get to the point where I feel like I can grasp it and
I've been at that point 3 times now.
Okay, yeah, no,
So
I hear
just
you.
telling
I hear you. I'm not, so what I would suggest is that we ask for a full presentation from, at our next board meeting, just specifically on Measure C. Does that make sense?
No. What I would like, and maybe this is a one-on-one thing that each one of us do.
Happy to do that.
However,
Yeah.
I think what I'm interested in, first off, is does this process and procedure jive with Mr. Hurst's impressions of how Measure C is functioning and not functioning? Because when he was here a while ago, I thought I was absolutely clear from listening to him about how that whole thing worked. But I'm not sure if this is get all of the parties here, but not just.
Okay, so what I'm
one point of
asking
view.
is what would, we have done briefings, Mr. Allen's done briefings for other board members and also for Mr. Hurst, because he's now he's done the financial projections and cleaned it all up. We now have it on paper, so that helps. So I would suggest that we arrange one of those for you as soon as possible, and we're happy to do that. But hearing that my concern is that it also appears that it may be very confusing for the public, and I'm thinking that it may be very valuable to just dedicate some time to having those financial statements in front of us and the accounting for it and an explanation from Mr. Allen, if that makes sense.
Can I?
Yeah, let me just check in with Director Savage. Is that reasonable to you?
All possible.
Okay, let's proceed that way and let's direct. Now, I
Well-
have Director McGorty was
Yeah,
wanting to be
okay.
recognized.
So I had a phone conversation with Kathy and Mr. Allen today about this very thing, because I've been talking with Peter Johnston, the facilities manager, because I've been upset that there's all this turmoil about it. And so I went back and read the lease several times, and I think that's the problem. It's not clear in the lease exactly how it's set up.
Can I make a suggestion?
Director Katzif, yes, please.
I would like See, I learn visually. And surprisingly, many people do. And this is not visual. You can't see it. For example, when you look at tab 5, the bottom, total operating expenses was 627,000. When you look at the next page, which is the check register, if you eliminate the 1,125,000, which is a two-time expense, if you eliminate that, you have a monthly operating expense of 157,000. So, although this vendor list is correct and this check register is correct, it leads us away from understanding because of that one-time or two-time expense. Now, that's not a visual, but visuals are like boxes and arrows,
Okay,
all right? And what we need is some Venn diagrams and some boxes and arrows that people can actually see. We got this money up here, it went here, it went here, it went down here, it paid for this, and it went there, and it disappeared, all right? So if we could do that, if somebody could do that, maybe you can do it, then it would help everybody, including us and including the community. Right? If we do it right, it works. If we don't understand how people learn, then we're not teachers.
okay. Okay, now,
Point.
so let's,
Point.
okay, Director Savage, yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, in one of my multiple periods when I thought I understood the whole thing, previous treasurer, Jay Tippett, did exactly a flow chart diagram of exactly how the whole thing worked. And I'm going to go home to my computer and pull that up. And maybe there's some correction needed there to that, or my understanding of that needs to be corrected possibly. But I think that kind of a diagram, anyway, might be helpful for all of us. And I'll see if I can find it.
I hear you. I think it's a great suggestion. I think this has been a really good conversation because we want to make this clear. So, and of course, the benefit was Jade Tippett was a teacher, wasn't he?
Math
Okay.
teacher.
Okay. You had another comment, Director McGordy?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, then, have we done?
We didn't do the cash balances, the T-bill inventory.
Okay. Mr. Allen, can you take us through the T-bill inventory?
All right, let me, this will probably totally confuse everybody more than so, but this is our inventory report, investment report of our treasury bill activity. We're buying and selling treasury bills every 4 weeks for maturity. So what's on in front of you right now is 4 purchases, and you can see the purchase date and when they mature. This report is as of Tuesday, Monday the 22nd. The next day there on the 23rd, one of the bills had a maturity rate, so it'll be gone. When they mature, the money, I'll have to draw this up, goes into Tri-County's bank. It's electronically deposited by U.S. Treasury right into our Tri-County's bank on a Tuesday. The Treasury always pays on a Tuesday. Then on the following Wednesday, and then today on Thursday, I put in a bid for an auction for next week, and I'm notified, and the following Tuesday whether we got accepted. So I'm going to have to try to diagram all that so you can understand it. But we have one treasury bill. If we go to the second page, we have We had one treasury bill, purchased 7, that matured on July 16th. So it's in that area. And then, yes, on July 23rd, 1 week later, Tuesday, it was repurchased, and so it sat there for 7 days. It doesn't sit without interest. It's put in an interest-bearing account. It's only 4%. It's not 5.3, but it's 4%. So it sits there for a week at that rate, and then comes out on a new purchase. So it's a swinging door. They come in, they go out, and they have a waiting period of about 1 week. So that, well, sums that up. Go back to page 1. I'm going to have to do some drawing on this, but at the bottom, footnote A, as the interest is coming along on these maturities, the May interest, you can see when we were getting started, we were ramping up our par values, and it was 43,000. And June, for the month of June, it's up to 50,038. That money is put into one of the treasury bills. I don't attach it to all of them. So we've added 93,000 to purchase 3. Purchase 3 up above used to be 3 million. I'm adding interest income, so we are compounding on our interest income as well as principal. So we're getting the maximum yield on that every month, getting it reinvested. And then the last page 2 was merely the ones, I always keep track of the maturity ones. And there it shows the interest or the investment income, I'm calling it. 76,000 that we've realized on our first 7 purchases that have been, that have matured, 76,000. So, and I'll do some more drawing on that too. Try to show you how the cash goes in and out of tri-counties. So
That would be helpful. Director McGordy, did I see you had a question? Okay. Okay, any more questions from the board? Okay, Mr. McDonald, I know you're dying to ask a question, so go ahead. We'll
okay, well, we got one more report. Got the, kind of the most important one. So it's a summary of our cash. And I mentioned it before, but the investment fund and the Measure C monies totaled $5,976,000. The restricted capital fund, which is in the lease, totals on July 22nd in the U.S. Treasury, $10,793,000, because down at the bottom in tri-counties, you see that 2.5 million that matured. It's sitting down in that bank, and then it'll come up above where we'll bring that up to 13,293,000. So, and then it'll go back down again into tri-counties. So, and then the LAIF has a balance of 478,000. Bottom line is we have a huge amount of money of 20,341,000. The top number I need to clarify because Malcolm made some comments there at the beginning that money is in Wells Fargo. They have custody of it. They record it on their balance sheet. It's an entry called you debit cash and you credit deferred income, which is a liability on their balance sheet. But it's in their balance sheet. It's in their possession in their Wells Fargo bank. But if the lease goes south, which better not happen, or some kind of situation develops, that money is is owned by the district. If we shake hands and part ways, it does not, it's, the custodian is Adventist Health. They can make management decisions on it. They can draw money out of it. But the only way that we would get it back is if we part ways. I mean, and therefore we are the legal owner in that respect. If there's any money left, I mean, this thing has a high balance at the moment, and probably that's going to come down. But I've got to get my hands around. I cannot find any in the records, any interest income being posted to this Wells Fargo bank account. So I got to get that settled because it's a large amount of money. So. And
Mr.
you take $20 million, Mr. Chair, and multiply it just by 5%. We're talking $1 million investment income a year, $1 million. And that's huge. So, okay, enough said.
And you're huge.
Mr. McDonald.
Thank you.
Wow, impressive.
So two things, if I might. One is going to Wayne, thank you, first of all, to the recap of the Treasury bill inventory. On page 2 of 2, the right-hand column is the investment rate. And I'm sure you've taken note yourself, but I just want to make sure. The purchases from back in May, on May 7th, was at an investment rate of 5.37. Then we had sort of progressive drops from there to 5.365 for 5 different purchases, and then down to 5.355. I think this is a softball, but you're monitoring that, correct? That paying attention to the rates? And I guess the question would be, is there any trend that you're seeing in that as we approach August?
Malcolm, let me respond to that right now. I'm glad you called it out. We've done a good job of monitoring it closely. The market has been very stable, steady for the last really 6 months. That those swings that there are minimal. They're just 1 or 2 basis points, which is nothing. What's coming up probably in September, I listen to the Fed, I read the Fed's minutes, listen to the report from Chairman Powell, and looks like we're due for a rate cut probably in September. And I want to get ahead of that a little bit. And in the month of August, which isn't very far away, we may be taking our maturities out for 3 months or maybe 120 days, or maybe some of them 6 months. So I'm going to have to do some thinking and do some straddling there. But I'm always going to keep a little bit of money at the 28 days, the 4 weeks, for liquidity reasons, in case we need it. But we got to get into more locking in longer maturities. Rates are going to come down. Rates are going to come down. The country cannot tolerate the high interest rates any longer. We're going to get into a major recession if that happens, and the government is the one paying the interest on this, and they can't. They're having problems with their budget, as we well know. So,
Thank you, Wayne. The second question, it's my perception that going back to the check register number of 1,125,512 payment, that the simplest way to look at that is that is the number that the district is required per the lease agreement to pay Adventist Health every 6 months. All the other discussion about Measure C funds or anything else is really sideways from that. Is that accurate, Wayne?
yes.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else for Mr. Allen? Okay, at this point then, any comments from the board?
Well,
Director Katzo?
yeah, Wayne, you signed up for 90 days in 30-day segments. I don't know where you're at, but in terms of your tenure or the tenure of your contract, but I can't imagine this organization without you right now, and maybe for the next year. So I'm interested in knowing what your plans are.
I think we all are.
Well, I asked the question, so if you want to be a politician and say, I'm thinking about it, you're welcome to do that. But know that we're all, I think we're all uptight.
I'll give you a direct answer. For the last April, May, and June, and even had a little bit in here until July, if I believed those long hours and frustrations would carry on for another 4 or 5, 6 months, I'd say, I'm out of here on December 31. That I don't think is going to happen. Things are going to settle. They have settled down and much more controllable. And I can sleep at night, and I'm got these got down to one bank account, working the treasury bills. So I'm staying with the district that for an extended period of time, maybe through another year, through June 30 of 25 for this current fiscal year.
A great thing for us to hear. Have we formalized that in any kind of?
It's in the budget.
Well, we need some kind of a contractual arrangement, don't we?
You want Wayne's blood signature?
No, listen, I don't operate that way for 50 years, and you obviously have noticed what an outlier I am and that kind of stuff. But having been educated by the chair and by you, it seems that we have to put out an RFP or there's some legal stuff that screws everything up that we have to do. And I'm just asking if all those procedures are being handled.
We can do a formal extension of the contract and have Wayne sign that.
Don't we have to do that? Isn't that a requirement?
He stated it today in public, so
We will sign
we'll
him
follow up.
Sign them up.
We'll follow up.
Please
we
follow
will
up.
sign
We
him
won't
up.
let him go.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Wayne.
Thank you.
You can see how you're appreciated by all of us.
Yeah, very
Thank you
much
for
so.
your comment.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Comments from Director McGordy, Director Savage? Okay, then let's, we have a motion to adjourn?
Are we ready?
Just lost my.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'm shocked.
I'll move, we adjourn.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded for adjourn. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
You can. Susan Savage, yes. Paul Garza.
Yes.
Paul Katzis.
Yes.
Jan McGordy.
Yes.
And Sarah Spring absent. We are adjourned.
Okay, thank you.
At